Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Sean from SGT Report, and I'm glad to have back on the line Max Porterfield. He's the CEO of Calinex Mines. And the last time we spoke with Max, the interview was titled, As Gold and Silver Rise, Mining Shares Skyrocket. Max, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me again.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I wanted to ask you something. You said in that last interview, and I will quote you because I think it's come to pass to some extent. You said, if you start getting some of the manipulation to come out of the market for fear that people are going to get called out on it, and you were talking about precious metals manipulation, then you can allow the fundamentals to play out. I wonder if that's not happening, because I'll remind you that the DOJ is now investigating JP Morgan's precious metals trading desk and calling it a criminal enterprise. That's quite a sea change since the last time you and I talked.
Yeah, it's been a big change, and it's only been exacerbated as we kind of move forward in time here as we see other things come about. I mean, you look at Europe, it's completely messed up, in my opinion, with everything that you're seeing on there. You've got negative interest rates globally, which is going to be great for the precious metal space, because anytime you've got negative real interest rates, it'd be a demand driver, or a driver for higher prices.
What do you think the gold and silver prices are telling us? Now, I should tell folks that on Friday, I think gold got monkey hammered a little bit. It seems to me the central banks still don't want people turning their attention to the precious metals, right? They want people staying in fiat.
Yeah, they want people to continue to buy their bonds, and that was just to my previous comment about the negative interest rates. I mean, if you go to Europe, there's a lot of bonds they're negative yields right now, so why would you be incentivized to buy those bonds when you can in turn buy precious metals? So, and I think that's one of the reasons, obviously, that you've seen a flight back to the precious metal space, as because of that. Why? There's always the idea that you're going to hold a bond, you're going to get some kind of interest based upon that, which is your kind of counter argument in terms of why you wouldn't hold the precious metals, because you don't get paid interest on it. But in a negative interest rate environment, then it's a no-brainer to hold the precious metals. And you've seen that demand come into the market, and you've seen that run more recently in the precious metal space. And in any rise on any commodity, any stock, you're going to have ups and downs and retracements, and that's part of our health to move, I think, longer term higher for the precious metals.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess as I look at the charts on Friday, gold and silver was pretty much flat. I think it's finishing around 1490, but that is down from recent highs, around 1530, 1540. Did you ever in your lifetime think we would live through a time where the governments are trying to issue negative bonds? I mean, that's a road too far, isn't it?
It's a little bit, you kind of scratch your head on it. I wouldn't have ever thought it to be the case. And quite frankly, when I started reading about it, I couldn't believe that this is actually occurring, or how this would even occur. But I think that it just underpins how off everything seems to be right now in the world. So did it surprise me? Yes, but there's a lot of things in life that surprised me that ultimately look back upon going, wow, that was pretty crazy. So I think this is just one of them.
Well, I do think it's funny because I think they jumped the shark. I mean, they've obviously jumped the shark, and they're just trying to keep people dumbed down, and they don't want people turning to the precious metals. And, we've had Warren Buffett over the years call gold a barbarous relic, right? Because it doesn't give any interest return. But meanwhile, this is a shocking bombshell article and an admission that I recently covered with Jim Willey. The Dutch National Bank's stunning warning, quote, if the entire system collapses, gold will be needed to start over. Not only are they admitting that gold is very much a form of wealth and will be needed in the future, they're admitting that the entire system could collapse, Max.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like that. I mean, I didn't read that headline myself, but, just hearing what you had to say, it definitely sounds like that. It's no surprise to, I think, myself or yourself that, gold is a currency. I mean, it's been a currency for thousands of years, which just they say that otherwise. They can say all they want. I think that the people will speak ultimately in the end of it, and will continue to buy and acquire precious metals.
Well, can you give us an update on Calinex and just tell people a little bit about what's going on? The last time we talked, of course, we talked about zinc. You can talk a little bit about the zinc price. You can talk about tariffs. Maybe just give us a quick update. Calinex, of course, is located in Canada, folks, so it's a safe jurisdiction, which is nice given all the geopolitical uncertainty out there.
Yeah, so since we last talked, I think our last conversation might have been around when we put out our maiden PEA on the Nash Creek and Superjack projects, which are located in the Bathurst camp of New Brunswick. At that time, when we released that, zinc was around $1.50 a pound. Our preliminary economic assessment for those properties was based on a price assumption of $1.25 zinc, and then the trade wars hit, which is obviously going to impact, put the fear in about global growth coming to a slowdown because of that. Global growth slowing down will then reduce your consumption of base metals. And with lower consumption leads to lower prices. And I think the move that happened was rather dramatic fashion, where zinc prices peaked at $1.60, about Q2 last year. And about 3.5 months after that, they bottomed out around $1 a pound. So since then, the zinc prices have stabilized. Here, zinc today is at $1.10 a pound. LME inventories, which again, above ground inventories of the refined metal remain at near decade lows. And the real bottleneck right now is smelting capacity, because mine supply has rebounded. With that being said, Calnex, in terms of share price performance, is among its peers. It has been not the prettiest sight. I think the market overall threw the baby out with the bathwater. But personally, it was a huge opportunity for me and a lot of the folks around me, because it allowed us to catch that baby as it fell and acquire more stock in Calnex. So I've been a big buyer of Calnex myself over the past 9 months. Year to date, my personal holdings in Calnex went from 50,000 shares up to now 425,000 shares, and that's post consolidation. So what we did in the middle of this year, roughly, we rolled back the stock to clean out the structure. So today the company's got 10.5 million shares out. The float out on that, though, because it is tightly held, is roughly 6 million shares. So it is very tight. And then we spent the past, call it a year, on really focusing on the bread and butter of the business, and that's on generating targets to make discoveries. And so what we did in Nash Creek and in New Brunswick there was a very large district scale IP survey, generated numerous targets. We outlined about 15 to 20 of those to the market about a month and a half or so ago. And we're going to be planning on drill testing those targets in the coming weeks, which we're very excited about, because, when we put out the PEA, that kind of was just like a maiden PEA to show what are the potential economics like on it. And that was just a start for us, because we'd only had about 6 months of exploration where we were able to double the Nash Creek deposit to the size it is today. And now it's really about creating a district with multiple discoveries out in the project area. And, once we get over, the more scale we get, the more closer we get to it being, positive economics at today's zinc prices. And then over in Flin Flon, Manitoba, which is an area that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm very excited and passionate about Flin Flon. That's a community, again, as a reminder, that's been mining for 95 consecutive years, over 32 mines. However, we're in a situation right now where Hudbay's flagship mine in the area, the 777 mine, actually the only operating mine that feeds into the Flin Flon's processing facilities, is due to shut down in Q2 2022. So we're looking at just over 2 years out, or less than that, and there is not a mine kind of in waiting to feed those processing facilities, and that's going to have a big impact on that community. So the last time we had a drilling campaign there was on, we had some big discovery holes that we made, the largest of which was in late 2016, where we had some very high grade polymetallic discovery. It was 10.3 meters, a 13.1% zinc equivalent, but that also showed the high grade and polymetallic nature of the mineralization out in the Flin Flon camp, because that was 6% zinc, 0.7% copper, but it also had 1.8 gram per ton gold and 2 ounces silver in that intercept. Now, what we learned very quickly, though, in the Flin Flon area there, in Pine Bay on that discovery hole, was that it was very, very lowly conductive. And if you look at Flin Flon's history, the exploration model has always been to use electromagnetics, which is a tool that looks for conductive sources in the ground. And we're looking for a conductive target, which is pyrrhotite rich. But there's 2 host rocks in these that host these VMS deposits that are rich in both base and precious metals. Pyrrhotite, which is one of them that I mentioned, which has been really, all the mines that have been found in Flin Flon history, majority have been pyrrhotite rich, which make great conductors. They're very, very conductive. Now, the other host rock in Flin Flon or in these VMS deposits in general can also be pyrite or fool's gold. But pyrite is very lowly conductive. It's not a great conductor. And the mineralization that we hit and continue to hit around the Pine Bay area was pyrite hosted. It was non-existent in terms of pyrrhotite. So the tool that we're using, and had been the tool that kind of worked in the years past, wasn't the right tool for the area that we were discovering this mineralization at Pine Bay. And that's why at the beginning of this year, earlier this year, we made a move in trying a new tool that we had a tremendous amount of success with in New Brunswick with IP, induced polarization, but that looks for a different rock property in terms of resistivity and chargeability. So we brought a new tool to Pine Bay in Flin Flon, and we're going to have a new targeting approach, and we just did a capital raise, and a portion of those proceeds are going to be testing targets in Flin Flon to make a discovery that'll have a huge impact on the potential for the community out there, and at the same time create a lot of wealth for our shareholders, which we're quite excited about as well. And then in the Buckens camp of Newfoundland, where we have got a zinc gold resource, about a 500,000 ounce historic resource of gold resource there at Point Leamington. We're generating drill targets there, and we're going to look to have a drilling campaign there sometime early next year to really unlock the opportunity and potential in that camp with a kind of a starting basis with the Pine Bay, the Point Leamington deposit itself. So we've been very aggressive in terms of generating drill targets across the portfolio. Again, the portfolio is in close proximity to infrastructure, being in the Bathurst camp of New Brunswick, the Flin Flon camp of northern Manitoba, as well as the Buckens camp in Newfoundland. And now we're going to unlock the potential of those targets by drill testing them, beginning first in Bathurst, and then to follow in Flin Flon in the near future, and then sometime early next year at Point Leamington in Newfoundland.
Well, that's a far-reaching update. I appreciate that. And one of my questions was going to be, do you own shares? And you covered that. So out of 10.5 million total shares, you hold just under 5%.
And then
go ahead.
To that also, my family is a big supporter of my career, and they see what's the potential in Callinix as well. So that's another 1 million shares. The structure of this is very tightly held. I can put my finger on 55% of the float. So when you make a discovery that's got big potential, obviously having a tight structure and support a shareholder base like we do here, they've used this drawdown in the share price as an opportunity to add to their positions. It's a tremendous opportunity, I think.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the possibility of zinc shortages? I've heard about the LME inventories going down, and we also know that a few large miners control a lion's share of global supply. Are there any zinc constraints in your view? What are you seeing out there?
Well, I mean, the biggest constraint right now is going to be the smelting capacity. That's the bottleneck within it, because the smelters are kind of like the refiners are in oil and gas. They take the raw material and then they refine it into a usable product. So the mine supply is going to consist of zinc concentrates, and then that zinc con will go to smelter to be refined into the zinc, which is the LME inventories you see is the refined product. So right now, I think that the bottleneck has been on the smelting capacity. You did have a new mine supply come online in a healthy way. As you saw, zinc prices go up rather dramatically from sub 70 cents when we acquired our portfolio up to $1.60 a pound. But with that being said, I was just reading research here from Wood Mackenzie in that at essentially $1 a pound, and we're at $1.10, so call it like a 9-10% pullback in zinc prices today. 6% of global zinc miners would fail to profit and potentially cut output. So that just shows you how you're really at kind of the tipping point. The prices really can't go any lower from here, and if so, you're already going to look to see production be cut back based upon economics. So I think it's fundamentally very healthy here over in between $1 to $1.20 a pound. And then if there's any kind of mine supply issues, because there are a lot of large mines that make a big portion of global mine output or global supply, then you can have a dramatic move in zinc. But by and large, I think irrespective of that, you need to make a discovery, and that's the opportunity in this business, is to make a discovery, because a discovery that's economic will show that's going to make money no matter the market.
Yeah, and forgive me, I should have read the article for folks. I was referring to one I read from Economic Times. I've just found it here. The inventory levels for zinc We're also depleting at the LME-approved warehouses. Inventory levels dipped over 60% from August 2018 to mid-June 2019, from 250,000 in August to 100,000 in June 2019. Declining inventory levels signaled towards increasing demand and a possible shortage on the LME. Let me ask you this. This is the most basic question.
And to say that the inventories since that article was written have declined another about 45%. So
right?
Your LME inventories today, are I think around 60,000 tons. So 60,000 tons equates to I think less than a week of global consumption.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, the question I was going to ask, and it's a very, very basic one, is can you help the audience understand the idea behind buying the stock? If one buys shares now, how is one going to profit later? That's the most basic question I've ever asked. I mean, buy low, sell high, but I guess make the case for investing now, if you will.
Well, in terms of Calinex, I mean, Calinex right now is, when I took over the company, it had a $6 million valuation, and today we have a $6 million valuation. The difference between when I took over the company and today is that, well, we've got a PA stage asset with zinc and silver and lead deposits at Nash Creek and Superjack that we put a PEA on. We've acquired the zinc and gold deposit at Point Leamington, and we've got a much better understanding in terms of vectoring at the portfolio outside of Flin Flon, Manitoba. And that, in addition to that, we've got just under $2.9 to $2.8 million in treasury. So you're looking at enterprise value of just over $3 million. When you make a discovery, though, which is what we're looking to do through really exploring our portfolio, you can very quickly create a lot of wealth. And I don't think there's a business outside of mining, maybe oil and gas, that can do it as quickly. But a lot of times I compare mining to a biotech stock or something like that, where you're doing a lot of research and development. In biotech, you're going through clinical trials to try to see what are the outcomes of what you're looking to do, and you've got to pass the clinical trials. And as you kind of go through those hurdles and prove out the new drug that you're kind of working on, you get a revaluation based upon that. Now, what we do is very similar in the sense that our research and development is different, that we're doing different surveys and tests to generate targets that will then be essentially like our R&D and our theory. And then our trial, like in R&D, in biotech, our trial is actually putting a drill hole into the theory or hypothesis and the target that we've generated in hopes of discovering an economic deposit. Now, an economic deposit, depending on how big the target is and how valuable it is, the mines in Flin Flon can be worth, in terms of metal content in the ground, but, as high as $10 billion. And so then when you start make a discovery like something like that, and you start drilling that out, your stock is going to trade at a discount to the potential of the discovery that the company is making, and then eventually the company be a takeout target to a mid-tier or a large cap producer that's already producing. So that's how a company that's got a $6 million market cap today could very quickly go up and be in hundreds of millions of dollars based upon the size of the exploration target and the exploration results by drilling and having success with the drill bit.
Very good. Do you want to circle back to that nugget you shared with us about your findings of silver and gold in Flin Flon in the findings of precious metals? I mean, Calinex is no longer just a zinc company. We're also talking about tangible precious metals in the ground.
Yeah, so Calinex, its portfolio is made up of deposits that are called volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits, more commonly known as VMS. And what makes them unique is that they're high grade and polymetallic between base and precious metals. With that key kind of characteristics allows them to weather any kind of fluctuations in one underlying commodity. So when I made the example in terms of the big discovery hole that you're alluding to in Flin Flon in 2016, when our headline number on that was 13.1% zinc equivalent. And the reason why we put things in zinc equivalent basis is it allows investors to have an understanding in terms of what is the value in one particular metal. But within that drill intercept, the 13.1% zinc equivalent, 6% of that was zinc and 0.7% of that was copper. The precious metals component almost made up nearly half of the metal content with the 1.8 gram per ton gold and then nearly 2 ounces silver, the 60 gram per ton silver. So again, these VMS deposits are going to be rich in base and precious metals and gives investors exposure to either commodity and allows them also to kind of really make it in any kind of market, irrespective of any sudden move in one underlying commodity versus the other.
Okay. Well, zinc, gold, silver, copper, it's an interesting story. And guys, interest of full disclosure, I don't hold any shares currently of Calinex. And I'd advise you to talk to a licensed investment advisor before making any decisions to buy or sell any security. This is not investment advice, but I really do appreciate the information today, Max. And if people listening want to reach out to the company directly, how do they do that? Is there anyone they can talk to, or where do they go to learn more?
Yeah, they can go to our website at calinex.ca. That's spelled CALLINEX.ca. And also feel free to give us a call. And we're traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the ticker CNX, as well as on the OTC under the ticker CLLXF.
All right, very good. Hey, final word. I'm just curious to sort of get your view. You're in Canada, I'm in the States. You can see what's going on politically with President Trump and geopolitically with everybody in the world seeming to be aligned against him. Your thoughts economically on anything the president is doing to bolster the U.S. economy in the face of what many people are talking about is a coming global depression. I know that concerns you because, of course, zinc demand relies on a healthy economy, but your thoughts just on what you're seeing from your vantage point in Canada.
Well, I am an American, and I recently became a Canadian, so I'm kind of straddling both sides of the trade there. With that being said, I think obviously the trade war and the disputes that have been ongoing between the U.S. and China definitely didn't help the metal space. I think that personally that he might be making some decisions that are more challenging and difficult for politicians to make, and oftentimes politicians are more concerned about being reelected than actually delivering on their kind of the campaign goals or what they proposed. And so I think he's addressing things that have been issues and underlying that other politicians have agreed on. Other politicians have gone out and really kind of made it a one of their key points for how they want to move the things forward in their perspective. Yeah. But none of them actually gone out there and done it. So, on immigration, for example, every single sitting president over the past 3 or 4 administrations at least said that was an issue, but it's a very touchy subject. It's a difficult subject, and he's kind of gotten his hands dirty in trying to address these type of things. I think the same has always been said with the relationship with China and how to really unwind that. So while it has been painful for everyone involved, particularly in the metals business, base metals business, surely, I think longer term is likely being the right decisions for the country, moving forward. So you're going to take your medicine at some point. The sooner you take it, the better, I think. And I think right now we're just having a dose of that.
Wow, I really appreciate your candor on that. I agree with you. I think the president is doing some things that are difficult to do politically if he wants to be reelected, but he's doing what he said he would do. And unlike some other politicians, I guess we don't have to name names, but a female politician who was recently running for president told Goldman Sachs she has 2 policies. One she tells the public, and one she shares privately with bankers. All right, Max. Well, I really very much appreciate your time. Guys, our guest has been Max Porterfield. He's the CEO of Calinex Mines. That's CNX on the TSX venture and CLLXF on the OTCQX in the States. Max, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me again.
Yeah, I very much appreciate it. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Check us out for real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com. God bless. Bye-bye.
You've got this whole network of neocons, neoliberals, and Democrats working with the media, working with British intelligence, and Trump is outflanking them.